What happens when a CEO decides to work a night shift just to see for himself, and ends up discovering a worker running an entire store alone? Shaden O'Neill bought the chain of fast casual diners 7 years ago. Back then, it was a mess, crumbling locations, high turnover, no systems. He turned it around. 9 stores across 3 states. Clean branding, solid food, decent numbers. But lately, something's been off. Late-night reviews were brutal. Not about the food, about service, long waits, cold meals. One review said, "If you don't mind being ignored for 20 minutes, this place is a dream." That stung. Shaden didn't get into this business to serve cold food and bitter experiences. He'd gone through reports. District manager said it was just young new hires still learning. Store managers blamed scheduling issues, kids calling out last minute, and parents not approving late shifts. But Shaden didn't want another spreadsheet or excuse. He wanted eyes on the floor, so he picked Store 5. It was one of the newer locations in a busy suburb just off the highway. Most of the complaints came from there. He decided to go undercover as a new night security hire. They'd never met him, none of the night crew had. Most of the staff only saw his name on company-wide emails. He was just a name at the top. So he hired a makeup artist to gray his beard, used fake glasses, and wore a uniform that said Crown Shield Security. No reason for anyone to look twice. He arrived at Store 5 at 10:50 p.m. The parking lot was half lit, one flickering street lamp buzzing overhead. The store was supposed to close at midnight. He walked in and no one greeted him. The dining area was empty. 2 tables hadn't been cleared. The soda machine had sticky puddles under it. He waited by the counter. After about a minute, a short girl in a visor rushed out from the back, hair tied up in a messy bun, apron stained with sauce. "Oh, sorry, be right with you," she called, breathless. Shaden nodded. She wasn't rude, she was overwhelmed. She came back 30 seconds later. "Are you here for pickup?" "New security," Shaden said, lowering his voice. "I was told to check in with the manager." Her face went blank. "Oh, I'm the only one here right now." Shaden blinked. "You're the only one." "Yeah," she said, already turning to the fryer, pulling up a basket of fries. "I'm covering tonight. Manager said the other guy called out sick. Again." He watched as she dropped the fries, hit a button to toast buns, then rushed to the back. He followed her with his eyes. She disappeared for a second, then came back juggling a bag of frozen patties and a headset. "Drive-thrus backed up," she muttered. Shaden stepped aside as she leaned over the register, punched in an order, then ran to the grill. "Wait, so you're handling front, drive-through, kitchen, and cleaning?" he asked. She gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, welcome to Friday night." He didn't say much after that, just nodded and sat at one of the sticky booths. He stayed for an hour, watching her move like a one-woman army, taking orders, flipping burgers, bagging food, wiping tables in between. At one point, a man in a hoodie came in, clearly impatient. "Been waiting in drive-through for 15 minutes, he snapped. "I'm really sorry, sir," she said quickly. "I'll get your order out now." The man scoffed and walked out. She didn't even flinch, just kept moving. At 12:05 a.m., the last car pulled away. She locked the doors, exhaled, then leaned against the counter for just a second. Shaden noticed her shoulders shaking, not from crying, just exhaustion. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Yeah, just tired." "How often does this happen?" She shrugged. "Twice a week, maybe 3. Manager says there's not enough coverage. We had 2 people quit last month. One got tired of being screamed at. The other got a better job somewhere else." "Why don't they bring someone from another store?" "They said everyone's short. Store 7's got like 4 people total." He nodded slowly. "What's your name?" he asked. "Zadie," she said, walking to the sink. Zadie Green. He watched her scrub the fryer baskets with red, raw hands. She didn't complain once. "Why do you stay?" he asked. She looked over her shoulder. "Because I need the money, and because I like the customers. Most of them anyway." He sat there a little longer, quiet. Then he stood up. "I'll be back tomorrow night," he said. Zadie nodded, not looking up. "Okay, just don't expect a clean table." He walked out into the cold air, heart pounding. He didn't know if he was more angry or ashamed. All this time, he thought it was just lazy kids and call-outs. But Zadie wasn't lazy. She was drowning, and no one was helping. Not anymore. At 3:15 the next afternoon, Shaden parked behind Store 5 near the delivery entrance. He kept the same uniform and looked gray beard, security badge, plain ball cap. His phone buzzed, but he ignored it. Emails could wait. He needed clarity, not noise. Inside, prep was underway. The kitchen smelled of thawed meat and industrial cleaner. A different young man behind the grill looked up as Shaden entered. "Security again?" he asked, flipping a patty. "Yeah, just checking in." The kid nodded and went back to his station. No questions, no introductions, just routine. Shaden scanned the place. The manager, Colin, wasn't in sight. He waited near the mop closet until 5 when the swing shift started to filter out. Around 5:30, a man in a dark blue polo wandered in through the back, sipping a fountain drink. Tall, unshaven, maybe mid-30s. He stopped briefly near the register, then disappeared into the office without a word. Shaden followed. The office door was open. Inside, Colin was leaning back in a rolling chair, legs stretched, phone in hand. "You the manager here?" Shaden asked calmly. Colin glanced up, not moving. "Depends who's asking." "Security, just logging names." "Colin Jacobs." He scratched his chin and turned back to his screen, not offering anything more. "You run the night shift." Colin laughed once. "Nope, I schedule it. I'm out by 6, haven't worked a close in over a year." "So who's in charge after that?" "Whoever's still breathing." Shaden didn't answer right away. He just looked around. The office was cluttered papers, stacked without order, empty energy drink cans in the corner, a whiteboard listing last week's goals with none of them crossed off. You knew there was only one person working last night. Colin set his phone down slowly. "Yeah, Zadie, she's solid, handles it better than most." She was alone for over 3 hours. Colin shrugged. "She's not complaining." That was all Shaden needed. At 6, Zadie walked in, wearing the same visor, same apron. Her eyes flicked toward Colin's office and then to Shaden. "You came back." "I said I would." She offered a tired nod and went straight to the prep table. Shaden let her settle in before speaking again. "Is there ever a second person scheduled with you?" "Sometimes, not lately." "Why not?" She paused, slicing a tomato. "Colin says the budget's tight. He cut hours 2 weeks ago, says it's temporary." "Anyone from corporate check-in?" She gave a short breath through her nose. "They send those surveys and shift reports, but no one's been here in person since winter." Shaden watched her press down the prep lid and wash her hands without looking up. "Do you trust Colin?" She reached for a new box of gloves. "Try not to think about it." At 6:45, the dinner rush started. A woman called out from window 2 that the speaker wasn't working. A group of teenagers came in and started fighting near the drink station. Zadie paused only briefly before handling both resetting the drive-through system, then firmly asking the group to keep it down. Colin stayed in the office. Shaden waited until the line thinned, then stepped in. "Hey, question," he asked the young man at the grill. "Do you ever work nights?" Used to, the kid replied, wiping his forehead. Not anymore. Told Colin I was done doing doubles. Why? He didn't hesitate. Because he'd tell me I had coverage, then I'd end up stuck here till 1 in the morning with nobody. Ever tell anyone higher up? Once, got a call from HR after that, but Colin said I was exaggerating. Shaden nodded slowly. What's her name? Jalen, I'm just part-time now. School started back up. The pieces were clicking faster than he liked. At 9:30, Zadie was on her own again. Jalen left, the swing cashier clocked out, and Colin had vanished without saying goodbye. Shaden lingered in the lobby, watching every movement. Zadie kept the pace steady, quick hands, sharp memory, no wasted steps, but even he could tell it was too much. He stepped outside to call his regional operations director. Need you at store 5 tomorrow morning, he said. Bring full schedules for the last 60 days, and I want the turnover reports. Everything okay? No. He hung up. At 11:10, a silver sedan pulled into the lot and parked awkwardly across 2 spaces. 2 men got out, both in their 20s, laughing loudly. They came in, one tossing his keys in the air. Yo, you still open? One shouted. Zadie nodded, for another 40 minutes. The second man walked straight to the counter and leaned over it. Let me get Dunno, what's good here? She opened her mouth to answer, but he cut her off. Actually, you pick something hot and fast. Shaden watched closely. Neither man was aggressive, but they were testing her mock casual, dismissive tone, leaning in too close. She kept her voice even but firm. I can't choose for you, sir. There's a menu above. Come on, the first one said. You look like you know what's up. She didn't respond this time, just tapped her screen and waited. They finally gave their order. As she bagged it, one of them muttered something under his breath. Shaden didn't catch it, but it made her shoulders tense. She handed them the bag with a flat, "Have a good night," then turned toward the fryer. The door shut behind them. Shaden stepped up to the counter. You hear what he said. Doesn't matter, she said without turning around. It does to me. She stayed quiet, eyes fixed on the timer. Shaden exhaled. You shouldn't have to deal with this alone. She turned then, finally meeting his eyes again. I know, but I do. He didn't sleep that night. At 6 the next morning, he was already in the district office with his regional team. By 8, Colin was sitting across from him in a glass-walled conference room. What's this about? Colin asked, arms crossed. Shaden took off the cap and glasses, folding them on the table. Colin blinked once, then sat up straighter. Wait. I'm Shaden O'Neill, he said. I own this company, and you're done here. Colin started to speak, but Shaden cut him off. You scheduled one person to run an entire store, repeatedly. You left minors alone on shift. You ignored escalation procedures, and you lied to HR. I didn't lie. You said staff exaggerated. I saw it myself. I was there. Colin's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked down. This is non-negotiable, Shaden said. You're terminated effective immediately. Security will walk you out. I've been here for 4 years. And you let it rot from the inside. Colin stood slowly, then left without a word. That afternoon, Shaden returned to store 5. Zadie was prepping sauces in the back. He called her into the office. She looked wary, not defensive, just bracing for more weight. Instead, he offered her a chair. I'm not a security guard, he said. She blinked once. I figured. I'm Shaden. I run the company. She didn't say anything right away. Then, okay. I saw how you handled the store. And I saw how alone you've been. He slid a folder across the table. I'm promoting you to shift lead, effective tonight, extra pay, full support. You'll have 2 team members minimum on every close. That starts now. She opened the folder, glanced at the sign letter inside, then looked back up. Why me? Because you earned it. She folded the paper carefully and stood. I'll hold you to it. I'm counting on it. He walked her back to the floor, where 2 new hires from Store 3 were already unpacking uniforms. Zadie didn't say anything else. She just picked up the headset and started training them. And for the first time in weeks, the store didn't feel heavy. By Monday, Shaden returned to Store 5 without the disguise. He didn't announce himself. He walked through the front doors just after 2, wearing jeans, a dark jacket, and a plain button-up. No cameras, no clipboard. He was there to watch, not perform. The lunch rush had passed. Tables were mostly clear, though a few trays sat untouched on the window counter. 2 employees, one at the grill, one at the register, were working in sync. Neither looked up when he entered. He stepped to the side and waited. Zadie came out from the back, tying her apron as she moved. She spotted him and gave a quick nod, then turned to scan the floor, eyes sharp. No wasted motion. She was different now, still focused, still fast, but her shoulders weren't hunched like before. There was a steadiness in the way she moved, not relaxed but balanced. Shaden waited until the register was clear, then approached. How's the new team holding up? Zadie adjusted the headset. They're green, but they're trying. One of them asked me how to dice onions with gloves on, so that tells you where we're starting. Anyone stepping up? Emmy, she's only been here a week, but she picks things up fast, doesn't wait to be told. He nodded. I'll keep an eye on her. Zadie gestured to the prep board. We're holding steady, but we're short on fry baskets. One of them's cracked, and the other 2 are warped. Already ordered replacements. They'll be here by Thursday. Good, because if one more breaks, we're back to flipping orders by hand. She turned as the headset beeped. Drive through, I'll get this one. He stepped aside as she handled the order. Her tone was patient, clear, no trace of strain. When she was done, Shaden walked toward the back. The office door was open. Inside sat a man in his early 40s, glasses low on his nose, typing into a small laptop. His name tag read Russell Interim Manager. Russell looked up when Shaden entered. He stood immediately. Mr. O'Neill, didn't realize you were dropping in today. I'm not here for the formalities, just wanted to see the floor. Russell nodded. I've been going through the weekly reports. Staffing's still the biggest gap. We've got interviews lined up, but most of them are no-shows once they hear the hours. Any issues with returning staff? 2 former employees reached out after Colin was let go. One wants to come back part-time. The other asked about a different location. Shaden crossed his arms. You meet with the night crew yet? Tonight, I'm working the closing shift with them. Good, I want your notes by morning. Honest ones. Russell nodded again, understood. Before leaving the office, Shaden paused. And don't babysit, observe. Let them run it how they've been running it. I hear you. He left the store without another word. No need to linger. He'd seen what he came to see. That night, at exactly 6:30, Emmy clocked in 10 minutes early. She wore a worn hoodie over her uniform and carried a small, dented thermos. She looked unsure walking in, but Zadie greeted her with a simple, "You're early. Good. Let's get the grill set." By 7:15, the dinner traffic picked up. A family of 5 came in, followed by a pair of college kids. Zadie worked the register while Emmy handled the wrap station. Russell stayed back, watching quietly from the corner. At 8, the third closer, a young man named Devont, arrived. He didn't speak much, just nodded at Zadie and washed his hands. He was efficient but quiet, moving between the fryer and prep station without being told. Russell, clipboard in hand, watched how they moved. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer advice. He just watched. At 9:30, a man in his 50s came in with a large duffel bag and a heavy coat. He looked tired, eyes sunken, voice low. "Just a coffee," he said. "Room for cream." Zadie poured it herself, placed it on the counter, and said, "It's on the house." He blinked. "You sure?" She nodded. "It's cold out. Stay as long as you need." Emmy glanced at her, surprised. Zadie didn't explain. She just went back to the register. At 10, the pace slowed. Devant was wiping down the fryer station when Russell approached him. "You've worked here before." "Since March," Devant replied. "Took a few weeks off last month. My mom had surgery." "You were scheduled during that." "Yeah, told Colin I needed time. He said could swap shifts. But when I called in, he marked it down as no show, cut my hours after that." Russell wrote something down. "You bring that up with HR." Devant shook his head. Didn't see the point. Figured I'd just work and keep quiet. "You're not invisible," Russell said. "That's changing." Devant nodded once, then went back to wiping trays. By 11, the traffic dwindled to nothing. Zadie pulled the drive-through drawer, counted it, and locked it. Emmy was sweeping the lobby, and Devant handled the trash. Russell stepped forward finally. "I've seen enough." Zadie looked over. That a good thing or a bad thing? "I'll tell you tomorrow. Right now, just close clean." She gave a curt nod and returned to the register. The next morning, Russell met Shaden at the district office. "They're holding the line," Russell said. "Zadie's running a tighter shift than most salaried managers I've worked with. She doesn't micromanage, but she doesn't miss anything either." "And the others?" "Emmy has potential. She takes correction well. Devant's consistent. Doesn't talk much, but doesn't miss steps." Shaden leaned back. "Any red flags?" "One, cash drawer was off by $6. Not enough to raise alarms, but I flagged it." Zadie rechecked it herself and found the discrepancy. It was a register input error, not theft. "Good." Russell hesitated. "One more thing." Reviewed the last 3 months of Colin's shift logs. There were multiple nights where no manager checked in, even though policy says a district lead should call every third shift. Shaden's jaw tensed. "That wasn't just negligence, that's systemic." "I agree, and I think it goes higher than Colin." Shaden stood. "Then we're going up." By Thursday, Shaden scheduled a meeting with the head of regional operations, 2 compliance officers, and the person responsible for overseeing shift audits. The meeting was quiet at first, until Shaden dropped the compiled report on the table. 32 nights, no compliance calls, no shift left summaries, no confirmations logged. The compliance officer flipped through it. These were marked as complete in the system. Shaden nodded, because someone was checking false boxes. The regional head tried to speak, but Shaden cut him off. "I've already suspended your assistant for falsifying reports. If anything else surfaces, I'll treat it as fraud." He turned to the compliance lead. "I want every store re-audited. Night shifts past 90 days, quietly, no warnings." The officer nodded. "We'll start tonight." Shaden left the room and immediately called Store 5. Zadie answered. "Just a heads up," he said. "You'll have a quiet observer in the lobby tonight, not a test, just verification." "Understood." "And one more thing," he added. "I want you to start mentoring Emmy. Get her ready for lead responsibilities." There was a pause. "She's not ready yet," Zadie said. "I know, but she will be." All right, I'll train her my way. I'd expect nothing less. Shaden hung up and stared at the hallway outside the conference room. Fixing one store wasn't enough. Not anymore. By the second week of the quiet audit sweep, the results were unavoidable. 4 other stores had repeated night shift violations too, with staff running solo for hours at a time, and one with a manager who hadn't stepped foot in the building past 5 p.m. in over 2 months. Shaden reviewed every page of the compiled audit himself. He wasn't interested in delegating judgment. If trust had been misused, he'd be the one to clean it up. At Store 5, things were stabilizing but not comfortably. Staffing was still lean. Zadie now had 2 consistent closers, but they were still in training. Her own hours stretched long, and while she handled it with quiet precision, Shaden knew it wasn't sustainable. He called her on a Monday morning. "I want you off the floor tonight," he said. "Just for one evening. Come to the district office at 5. We're holding a feedback roundtable." "Is this about the audit?" "It's about what comes next." When she arrived, the room already had 3 chairs filled Emmy, Devont, and a lead from Store 7 who had volunteered to help cover during the transition. Russell stood near the whiteboard, marker capped in one hand, a clipboard in the other. Shaden nodded to Zadie as she entered. She took the last chair without speaking, scanning the room once before settling. "I'm not here to talk," Shaden began. "I'm here to listen. You've all seen what happens when this company forgets its people. That's not happening again." Devont leaned forward slightly. "We've got decent people. They just burn out fast. We had 2 trainees last week. One didn't come back after their first close. Said it felt like punishment." "They're not wrong," said the lead from Store 7. "You run a shift with 3 people and a line out the door, and every second feels like a sprint. Do that 5 nights a week, you stop caring." Emmy nodded, quieter. "I like the work. Just, I don't always know when it's okay to ask for help. Don't want to be the one slowing everyone down." Zadie looked at her then, not with criticism, just recognition. "You're not slowing anyone down. You're learning. What slows us down is pretending we're fine when we're not." Russell finally spoke. "We're adjusting training windows based on the audit. No more throwing new hires into closing shifts without shadow time. Every store will have 2 overlapping leads for the next 60 days. Shaden added, "And every manager who falsified call logs or dodged shift coverage is either gone or under review. That's not up for debate." Devont looked up. "What about pay?" Shaden nodded. "We've increased base night shift rates by $2 an hour effective next payroll. Shift leads will receive a quarterly bonus based on performance and retention." Zadie glanced toward him. "Retention how?" "If your trainees stay past their probation window and your store holds compliance, you get rewarded. If they quit within the first month, no bonus." She leaned back, arms crossed. "Fair." The meeting lasted another hour. Quiet at first, then slowly building into sharper feedback. No one sugarcoated anything. That's what Shaden wanted. They didn't owe him polish. They owed him truth. The next night, Shaden stopped by Store 5 again. This time, he stayed in the lobby, off to the side. The new closers moved with tentative rhythm. Emmy was guiding one through the register while Zadie observed from a short distance, arms folded, not interfering. A woman in her early 60s approached the counter. She wore a pale yellow coat and walked with a slight limp. As she reached the counter, the new trainee froze. Welcome to wait, sorry, let me start again." The woman smiled patiently. "Take your time, dear." The trainee fumbled through the order, fingers tapping the wrong keys twice. Emmy stepped in gently, showing her the right sequence without speaking over her. The order was completed without issue. Shaden watched Zadie. She wasn't correcting. She was letting the mistakes happen in real time, knowing Emmy would catch them before they grew. That wasn't just training. That was trust. At the end of the shift, Shaden waited just outside the double doors. Zadie stepped out first, tying a hoodie around her waist. "You get some air?" Shaden asked. 15 seconds of it. He smiled. "You did good in there." She didn't answer right away. Then, "They're getting better. Just don't want them to burn out before they hit their stride." "You're not alone in that anymore." She glanced over. "I know, still feels new." "Then we keep building until it doesn't." The next morning, Shaden met with the compliance officer again. The final audit numbers were in. Of the 9 stores, 5 had minor violations, 3 had serious ones, and Store 5 had passed every checkpoint since the changes were made. He signed the report without hesitation. 2 days later, he returned to Store 5 mid-afternoon. A few customers were eating quietly. The register was clean, the prep station stocked. Zadie was seated in the office this time, not behind the desk, but across from Emmy, who was reviewing a printed training checklist. Shaden knocked once before stepping in. "Didn't want to interrupt." Zadie stood. "We were just reviewing food safety tiers." Emmy looked up. "I've almost got 'em all down, just need to remember the hot hold minimums." Shaden smiled. "If you know the difference between 150 and 165, you're already ahead of where I was at your age." Zadie turned to him. "Something you need." He reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This is your formal offer. Assistant store manager. You'd be overseeing scheduling, day-to-day operations, and mentoring new shift leads at Store 5 and Store 7. She didn't reach for the envelope immediately. "Why both?" "Because you've proven you can lead without controlling. Store 7's in transition. They need that." She finally took the envelope, eyes scanning the header without opening it. "I'm not going to babysit another store if it's broken." "It's not broken. It's just waiting for someone to take it seriously." She placed the envelope on the desk and looked at him. "I'll do it, but I want full say on who train. No handoffs from other managers. If I'm responsible for them, choose them." "Done." Emmy stood quietly, watching the exchange. Shaden turned to her. "You ready to start shadowing as lead next week?" She nodded once. "If Zadie says I'm ready, I'm ready." Zadie gave a small laugh. "Guess I better say it then." Shaden left the office without another word. Outside, the sun was setting low behind the parking lot, casting long shadows across the lot. The same lot where he'd first walked in as a fake security guard, thinking he was just checking in on a few complaints. What he'd found was a system that had started bending when no one was looking, and people holding it up with their bare hands. That wouldn't happen again. Not on his watch.